Good morning. I ask that you turn your cameras on so I can see you, please. Welcome. Welcome. Well, we had to for a second. I think we have a few more. All right, did you get my feedback from the first week? Was it helpful or not? Was it? Okay. I'm going to be a little harder in grading this week, but I'll try to get at it right away. Who else is here? Let me see. 3 of us. I guess that's everybody for now. Okay. Is it Kamel? Is that right?
Come on.
How do you say your name? Say it for me.
Oh, come on.
Come on. Okay, good. And you're, oh boy, say your name.
Greta.
Greta? G-R-E-T. Greta. Okay, G-R-E-T-A. Okay, great. Well, I'm going to make this as direct as I can and as useful as I can. So first, let me ask you, do you have any questions about last week? Was it pretty straightforward? Is the amount of work about right for, it's supposed to be a 16-week class, but it's got to be condensed. So you're doing more than you normally would a week, I think. But does it seem right? More or less? Oh, right on. Okay, good. How about, have you looked at week 3 yet and what's required this week? You have? One of you have. Okay. So is it clear, or do you want, maybe I'll go over it, and then if you have any questions, certainly ask, okay? So the discussion is something we have every week, and you're familiar with that. And just to be sure that we all understand, you do a kind of a larger comment on what we're looking at that week. And then you have to go back to 2 other students later in the week and comment on theirs. You could be the same student, 2 different comments, but normally it's 2 different students. And those comments can be shorter, but try not to make it opinion. Try to make it a reasoned, logical, saying comment. So it's just not, I like this or I don't like this. Who cares? I don't need to read that. And you don't need to read that or even say it. But if you can make a comment, this is a point because, and then give your reasons. So I'm looking for you to be critical, not in the negative sense, but in the analytical sense. Okay, so that's what I'm really looking for there. Okay, and then our normal read and respond, we have that as well. And then there's a pretty major assignment. It's 100 there's 2 major written assignments, and this is one of them. But it's not just written, it's keeping track. It's called a media diary. And Greta, did you look? You said you looked at Module 3. Did you look at the assignment and what I'm going to ask there?
No, I kind of just like skimmed everything.
You just skimmed it? Okay. So what I would ask you to do, see what I did with that. Here it is. No, here it is. Actually, maybe I can pull it up, and that might be best. So whoa, I didn't want to do that. Okay, I might, just for a second, I'm going to do something here. Pull that over there. Okay, now we're going to go back to. Where's the Zoom session? Oh, there. How do I get you back? That didn't help. Okay, think I'm back now. What I want to do is, I should have done this before. I never thought of doing this though. I'm going to pull up what you eventually will do, because what you'll do is take 3 days of just recording your media experiences, your media interactions. You don't have to tell me what you said, but you just that you're doing that, you know, that you, the time you spent on the media and the kind of media it is. And I'll show you what that looks like. So we're talking about module 3. Boom. And then I want you to write an analysis of it, what you learned about yourself, how much time you spent, what kind of, are you entertaining yourself, or are you interacting in business? Are you interacting with on social media, that kind of thing. Okay, media diary. Okay, what I want to show you, you can read it, but I want to show you, oh no, it's going to open up over here. All right, so here we go. Okay, good. Let me share the screen so you can see it. Can you see that now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So here it just tells a little bit of what it's at, but what I wanted to show you, this talks a little bit about the essay, and here's the grading rubric about how I'm going to grade it and what I'm looking for. And notice these questions. I don't know if you can see my arrow or little thing that identifies, but there it talks about how much you think you were influenced by advertising, how much you have, you know, just different things for you to look at and to comment on. And notice on this assignment too, I want at least you to look at 2 other outside scholarly sources on media influence. And then here's what I want you to fill out. All you need to do is just fill this out, and this has to be turned in too. Day 1, name or type of content, start time, end time, and total time. And then at the end of each day, you total it up, right? I don't know, where'd I go? Every time I get below that, it goes away. There it is. So down here where it says 2, and then any thoughts about your days of material you put there, but the total time you use the media. And there's 3 of those. So you turn in those 3 pages, or actually you can attach this whole sheet, however you decide you want to do it. And then I want 2 pages of essay with a reference on the 2 sources that you have. And so I ask that you get at least 2 sources. So you read and look, how does media influence in us, and what is it doing? Is that clear? Pretty clear? Okay, good. All right, we'll get out of this. And I think I may have mentioned we have a test, and well, let me see if I can get back to you now. I think I get, oh no, I don't want to do that. Cancel that. Join the meeting. There. Already launched the meeting. Where are you? Oh wait, here it is. I know what to do. There, we're back. Okay, so so that needs to be turned in, I think, by Saturday. If it takes you till Sunday, I probably won't, because I won't start grading until Monday. But you should get those in this weekend. Now, I think I told you there's going to be a test, and I want to go over next Monday. I thought I was going to do it today, but because the test isn't going to be taken until next week. I'm going to go over it next week. But I have made a 2-page, which I will go over with you, a 2-page preparation for the test and giving you key terms that you need to know. And the test is all objective, except for, I'll give you 5 essay questions, but you can choose out of the 5 only 2, and everything else you'll do. And the test is timed, so once you start it, you can't get out and try to come back in. So when you make sure you have enough time to finish the test when you start. But that's all next week, and I'll give you information. I think I will, though, send out sometime just before the weekend. I'll send out the study guide to help you get ready for the test, so that if you have the time, you can, and you've already finished your other assignment, you can begin to study for the test. The test is pretty hard, but doable if you keep up with the reading. And that's really important, to keep up with the reading and look at the, it helps to look at the PowerPoints that I have. So I want to go to those now. And let's look at the PowerPoints for this week. And I don't go over them unless I really think you need them, but I'll go over them quickly. So this week is week 3 is chapter 5 and 6. And whoops, did I lose you? Can you see me? No. I'm going to share this screen if I can. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay. So, chapter 5 is on music. So we looked at books, we looked at print media, we looked at first books, then we looked at newspapers, and then we looked at magazines. And then the next thing is sound and the development of sound. And of course, in the development of sound, we have music. And so sound recording started, and you need to know these different developmental stages of the media. All media has a developmental stage, an entrepreneurial stage, and then a mass medium stage. The mass medium stage doesn't really happen until after it's developed, and then the entrepreneurial stage. What really gives impetus to the media really spreading out is that entrepreneurial stage, how people can make some kind of money either off of the device or off of using the device. And that's still true today with the internet technology and computers and cell phones and all that sort of thing. It's how we use them and being able to use them. So all media, you just need to know a little bit about that and some of the people. Thomas Edison, of course, on the entrepreneurial stage was really important. The man who invented the phonograph and planted it in the answering machine. He was trying to invent the answering machine, and he invented the phonograph. And then Bell and Tainter rather, those are really important people involved in the entrepreneurial stage. And then we go finally to the mass media stage, where people are really developing it. And here we see Edison, I believe it is, Edison working on the phonograph. The old phonographs were round like that, the round cylinders, and not like the flat discs that you might be aware of. Either one of you have a vinyl records, any kind of records? You play those at all? You do? Okay, good. So all this was happened over time, and you literally need to read about it. I'm not going to take the time to go over all this, but it's in there, and even a description of what it's like, Essence phonograph, that sort of thing. Whoa. The different kinds of phonographs were developed over time, actually rather quickly, considering it. The phonograph, any sound recording device or device for playing previously recorded sound. The gramophone is any kind of recording device or device for playing previous sound, especially if used with a flat spinning disc. Let's let this person in. So that spinning disc is more of the gramophone, where the phonograph is more of the cylinder. The round disc, this one would be here. Can you see that when I have that arrow there? Can you?
Yes.
Okay. All right, good. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, they used to be big and kind of awkward, like this one, because there wasn't television, there wasn't internet, there wasn't any of that kind of mass media. So this was the very major kind of mass media. And what really had it made it develop was the music. Music really. I have actually one of these. This right here. I have one of these. Very close to. Doesn't have those that in the front, but it's. I got a couple of old ones. Just I like to collect old technology, and so I have a lot of some old cameras and some old radios, and not really old, but kind of that sort of thing. Okay, so then we go, of course, these sound recordings, and then the analog. Do you know what the difference between analog and digital? Are you familiar with that? Yes or no?
Yes.
Oh, you are? How about you, Greta?
I think so.
You think so? Okay, so let me see who else joined us here. Well, I guess I can't. If somebody else is on, if you could, we would. You don't have to, but we'd appreciate it if you would let me see you. It helps if I can see and not just hear. Is somebody else on? I let somebody else in. All right, not listening. Let me go back. So the analog recorder captures fluctuations of the sound waves and stores the signals in a record's groove or in a tape stream of magnetic particles. Digital recording. So this page is really important because it tells the difference. Digital recording translates sound waves into binary on and off impulses. So that was a further development, a very important development, because it allowed us to make things much smaller and still be able to record or show them. Binary on and off pulses that stores the information in sequences of ones and zeros as number code. And then when you get ready to play it back, it then reads that, and then it knows what kind of music or sound to produce because of that. So the one, it actually captures them in grooves. The other translates them into sound waves, translates the sound waves into binary on and off pulses, and then it returns it to that. It's much more exact in some ways, and yet people who appreciate the analog, as I do actually, because I have a record turntable and play the records, and I like that. That's my preferred sound, although I don't always just use that. The digital is very good for, like, in your car or when you're traveling, or if you go on the beach and you want sound or something like that. It's a much easier sound to carry with you and transport. And then we see the magnetic tape and the tape recorders, which used to be big and now they're almost extinct, not quite. The artificial dubbing, and here we see, do you know who this is? This guy sitting there with his hand in his mouth. Either one of you know? That's one of the Beatles. I think that's If I'm not mistaken, that's John Lennon. I could be wrong. But it's one of the Beatles. And this is at Abbey Road Studio. And so they were one of the inventors of this artificial soundtrack. And they used Abbey Road, which is still one of the very first studios, number 3 Abbey Road, and still exists today, to my knowledge. And they can do all kinds of things by taking a sound and then overdubbing so that you layer sounds one upon the other, which is normal for us today. We all know about it, but it wasn't normal back in the 50s and 60s and that sort of sound. So what happened to pop music is it appealed to a large segment of the population. Before then, it was more classical music or maybe some kind of religious music. Tin Pan Alley was a place where, so if you wanted to play somebody else's music before the recording, you couldn't. And so what you had to do was go get the sheet music, and then you'd play that. So sheet music used to be big, and Tin Pan Alley was a place where they used to sell that sheet music in Manhattan, sheet music for the piano or other instruments. Vaudeville, are either one of you familiar with vaudeville? Vaudeville is a type of variety show. It had acting, little skits, but it also had music. It also had jugglers, just about any, maybe stand-up comedy, all that kind of stuff. It was a variety of different kinds of entertainment, and people would come and hone their skills at these little vaudeville stages. And it was kind of where people went to learn their skills. What's interesting is, but the vaudeville was populated by immigrants from other countries because it happened to be there during that time when there was a lot of immigration to the United States. And vaudeville also was populated by a lot of people from the middle class and lower class. The higher class, where do you think they went? Any ideas? Well, they went to like the opera, or they went to a stage, dramas, the theater, that kind of thing. And a lot of this vaudeville actually came into place even before television and all that kind of thing, although television kind of put it out of business. But what is happening, and it actually was in place even before film. Film came before television, as you probably already know. But what was interesting about vaudeville is that the people that became the actors and actresses didn't as much come from the theater or the high class. They came from the vaudeville. They came from this very popular form of entertainment, and that's how they began to develop. Okay, sound recording. Frank Sinatra was huge, as you may well have known. Chuck Berry, Buddy Holly. These are probably terms that you're not familiar with. Rockabilly, Ray Charles, all people before you, but they really set the stage. Now, why is history important in music? Why not just go directly to hip hop or some kind of music that we're listening to today, popular music? And the reason is that all these people influenced the people that are playing now. Most of you have heard of the Beatles, right? Yeah, okay. The Beatles were influenced by so many other people. Elvis Presley, who came before, who, you know, your generation doesn't like Elvis Presley as much. It's old stuff. But Elvis Presley influenced the Beatles. The Beatles have influenced a lot of people who are playing today, and their music is still liked. So that's why you really want to look at and see where these. Now, what is the effects of rock and roll? Was brand new, and it was very popular, and it attracted the young people. It attracted and brought black and whites together. There can be an argument made that part of the racial divide was influenced in large ways by rock and roll, because they would come together, and you know, sometimes they would even have African Americans be on one side and white Americans be on the other, and they would have a rope in the middle to keep them separate. at concerts. And that rope would be torn down and they'd all be out there dancing and goofing off and doing all that kind of stuff. So it blurred these, the difference between racial differences. It also blurred the differences between high class and low class. Young people of every stripe, of every class, were coming together and really enjoying this. It even has blurred to some extent the difference between masculinity and femininity. And you can see that in how a lot of the popular artists dress and that sort of thing. The difference between country music and city music used to be very, very different. You'd find the old Appalachian music and you would never find that in the city, but then it kind of blurred. North and South, sacred and secular, almost all the major singers today many of them came from the church. And many of these early ones, Chuck Berry and Buddy Holly and all the whole rockabilly movement, many of them came from the church. So I'm not going to go through the rest of this. It just talks about the different kinds of music. What happened is there was rock and roll. There was basically one big kind, and then it began to splinter. And by the way, just to mention, the Ed Sullivan Show was a TV show that really made popular music, and it brought it to the masses, and even brought in people like the Beatles. The first time they were in the United States, they were on the Ed Sullivan Show. I remember seeing that when I was a kid. And so folk music, faceless rock, punk rock, grunge, indie rock, all that kind of stuff began to segment and fragment the music industry and sound recording. Big three labels: Sony, BMG Music, Universal, Warner Brothers. Those are the big sound. So money in the music industry came from the music itself, the CD sales, and the digital sales. What's happened to CD sales today?
No one really gets them anymore.
Nobody's buying CDs anymore. It's all digital. It's all downloading. So the technology continues to change, and it will continue to change. And there's a big controversial about how the musicians and the artists are making money. And you need to read that and talk about that and be willing to discuss it a little bit. MP3s, do you know what those are? MP3 enabled sound to be compressed into small magnetic digital files, allowing people to easily download music. At first, it was like pirated music, but then, everybody just does that now and has these MP3s. So that really allowed music to be shared a lot more, and it really influenced the music industry. Okay, enough of this. Let me go see if I can get out of this. All right, let me go back here. Good, here we are. Whoop, sorry, blew that. There. How do I do that? Okay. Okay, that was fine. Okay, so I'm just gonna go to radio just briefly, and I won't take much more of your time. Let me see.
Did you see my message that I sent you?
Yes, I did.
All right, I'm sorry. I have to go now.
Okay, you gotta go, you gotta go. I'm gonna go ahead and finish this, and I'm almost done, but I want to go through finishing this. And so, Kamal, you'll stay with me?
Yes.
Okay, good. That way I'll at least have somebody, and I'll go through this quickly, and then, if people want to look at this, they can. At least it'll be there. So radio takes us back to first, before radio, was a telegraph, and the telegraph could make sound, but you couldn't hear people's voices or musical instruments. All you did was hear a sound or a dot or not a dot. And so the telegraph in the United States invented, the people that invented telegraph, the Morse code. And the Morse code is either a dot or a dash. A dash was held long, a dot was just really punctured, just like that. And so you could see, oh wait, I'm not sharing this with you. Let me share the screen with you. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, good. So this shows the alphabet. So in order, and what was great about the Morse code and about this kind of telegraph technology is that you could send information for long distances. Before the telegraph, how were messages sent long distances? Let's say from the United States to Europe.
Probably letters.
Letters, and letters had to be carried by either Pony Express or by, if there was, some kind of technology. And then it had to be aboard a ship and then sent across. So it took a long time. So what happened, and this is especially important for the news industry, is that there was a war, the Mexican-American War, which took place down in, the Southwest. But people all over the United States wanted to hear about it. And so people in New York, if you wanted to hear about it, you had to wait till a guy could ride across the United States with information. But with the telegraph, you could send a short message. You couldn't, write a book, but you could send a message given the major details. They would take those details and then they would write an article and print in the paper. So what this allowed to happen was information to be transported, slow by today's standards, but fast by standards of that time, the 1840s and 50s and 60s and beyond. It was very, very fast that you could hear about what was happening in the war and follow that war by reading the stories in the local newspapers because of the technology of the telegraph and the Morse code. They even, in the 60s, laid a transatlantic cable. That's a cable, actual hardwire cable across the whole Atlantic, so that they could send messages from Europe to the United States and beyond. Okay, let's just go. Let me see where I am here. There. Okay, so we talked about the wireless and James Maxwell. You might look about his theorizing that actually became in practice by Hertz, and you heard of the Hertz test for Maxwell's theory using electric sparks that emanated electromagnetic waves and those kinds of things. And so here we see DeForest, Hertz, Fessenden, and Macaroni. All these are the early pioneers of sound and of radio. They actually decided that they had to have, in 1910, Congress passed a Wireless Ship Act, which required ships carrying 50 passengers or more to have wireless equipment. And that was after the Titanic tragedy, which happened. Congress passed the Radio Act of 1912 that required all stations on land or at sea to be licensed and to sign a special call letter. Because we don't think about this that often, but the airwaves are limited and you can't have people trying, two groups of people trying to, or more, trying to communicate on the same airwaves. So because the airwaves are limited, it's a limited resource that man can hear. We can only hear within a certain range. It had to be assigned by the government, and that's who did that. RCA formation of the early radio monopoly, and read about that whole story. I'm not going to try to tell it to you now. If there are a few more people here, I would, or if you really want me to, I will, but you can read about that in our book because it's very good. And then just look at the points I make here on the PowerPoint. KDKA was the first commercial radio station, which was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So that's a really important station. What else do we have here? Radio networks began. First began when RCA's partnered with AT&T began to unravel. And so AT&T, which had already had a government sanctioned monopoly on the telephone business, decided to break RCA's agreement, and attempted to monopolize radio. AT&T began to make and sell its own radio receivers. And then just read about that, about Cernoff and Pele, two very important people in this whole story. And I just want you to become aware of that, so you can read that in the book. There was growing concern about the power of the networks, raised a red flag. Licensees did not own their channels, but could use them as long as they operated to serve the public interest, convenience, and necessity. And those are really important words. And this is why the government came in, because of the limited resources, and they didn't own it. They just sort of rented that sort of place. To oversee the license and negotiate channel problems, such as too many stations trying to be on the air over a few frequencies, the Federal Radio Commission, FRC, was created. And that is just to manage and help. But what happened, what was interesting, today you don't hear the FRC. It became, and you probably heard this term, the FCC, Federal Communications Commission. Why? Because it wasn't just radio they had to communicate. It was other kinds of things when television and things like that came in. Okay, so the golden age of radio, of course, people could talk, but they couldn't see. And so they wanted different kinds of sounds. So they made sounds like a horse galloping, make that, or they'd shoot a gun if somebody was shot in the store. They used to have, and I know this sounds crazy today because we don't hear it that often, but I remember listening to it as a kid. My parents wouldn't get a television until I was about 8 years old. And so I had to listen to the radio for drama. And they would have horses gallop, they would have guns go up. They had actual dramas, not just singing and people arguing or shouting on the radio, but they'd actually have dramas. And those dramas then, when television came, they took over, and the people, those that could, moved to television. But the golden age of radio was 1920 to 1940s. Television actually was invented, we'll get to that next week, was actually invented before then. But because of the war, they didn't develop television that much because all the development and all the energy went into the war effort. All right. These are some of the shows on early radio programming. You can look at those. The real big question, and this is a question for radio's function, but it's not just radio, but it's all media's function. Is it a mirror that mirrors back what our culture is like? So when we see the radio stories, we see radio dramas, or listen to radio dramas, not see, listen. Is it a mirror of our culture, or is it a cultural influence? Or as some may say, is it both? And do look at Amos and Andy, which stereotype Black characters, and eventually moved from radio to television, and then it just died because of it was bigoted, and they got rid of it, the radio station, the television station. So the evolution of radio, you can read a little bit about that. Transistors especially made radio very mobile. And I remember when they came out, and then the FM station made radio much more, it made the sound better. TV took, as TV took over from many programs, radio turned to emphasizing music, but it needed a better quality of sound. So FM allowed the quality of sound over AM. And you can read a little bit about that. Okay. And radio, like music and sound, diversified because of television, really. So You have country and you have news and talk shows, specialized formats, contemporary hit radio, adult contemporary, urban, all that kind of stuff, Spanish language and that sort of thing. Nonprofit radio, primarily here in the States, that's NPR, National Public Radio, and you still have that with a lot of favorite. I listen to NPR and the other. The convergent, a radio convergence with the internet. And so you have internet radio. And do you know who that guy is on there?
I know his face. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, Howard Stern. And he was real popular on television, I think, and radio. And then he went to internet radio and satellite radio and podcasting and all that sort of thing. So he was real influential in that area. Read a little bit about selling ads and paying for programs. So if you were a promoter of a musician or a musical group, you would sometimes pay the radio station to play your person that you were promoting, which is illegal, but they did it. It's called a payola, a practice which the radio promoters played DJs to play certain radios. Why? Because they knew that if some people got more sound on the radio, there people were more likely to buy their products.
Mm-hmm.
So that sort of thing. So this is just some tech, and you look at it, low power FM stations, which variety shows are growing. The future of radio, talking a little bit about what that's like. You can just read those. I won't take up any more of your time. We've almost got 40 minutes in, a little over 40 minutes. Any questions you have about the assignments for this week?
No, I do not.
No? Okay, the discussion and reading are pretty common stuff, reading and interacting, so I don't think you're gonna have any trouble there. The big thing this week that you need to look for is doing the media diary and essay. And remember, I want 2 references on there. So, and I want a reference section. Even though there's only 2 references, I want, works cited, and then put those scholarly works down if you can. At least one of them should be scholarly. Okay, that's all I have for this time. Unless you need more. Again, I would say that if any of you, I'm going to put this up on or send it out for all of you to look at. Well, I think I can put it up on the, I can't remember how, if I either send it out or I put it up on the Blackboard Blackboard site. So some of you can watch it if you weren't able to be here today. All right. Have a good week. I look forward to seeing you, and I'll get to grading your second module assignments. And I'll try to give you information. All right. Thank you so much for joining. Appreciate it. Email me if you have questions.